Starting live. Hey, well, it looks like it's working. And I got a message come up to say that I can now broadcast for 8 hours. So if you're all settled in and you've got your food and your drink handy, we'll be here till the early hours of the morning. No, we won't be. It'll probably be about an hour. So this looks like it's going out live. If you can hear me and see me, Graham says we can hear you. So that's good. Right. So welcome to the second ever live gaming rules Q&A session. Anybody who's on the chat can ask me whatever questions they want. And a few people have sent in questions beforehand. So yes, hello everybody. Hello Graham. Hello Dara. Jeffrey. Fryback72. Hello Paul. Hi. Right. So while you were all thinking of questions that you might want to ask me, I'm going to go to the first one I got in, which is not actually a question that somebody sent me specifically for this. I got a geek mail from somebody a couple of weeks ago asking me a question, and I thought, well, I don't really want to answer this question, personally in a geek mail. I thought this is actually quite a good question for my Q&A. And the question was, which do I prefer, Prodigal's Club or Last Will? Now, you know me, I try to not give my own sort of public personal opinion on games that I've been involved in. And Last Will and Prodigal's Club are both from Czech Games Edition, who I work for. And I was involved in the development of both of those games. So, it does put me in a little bit of an uncomfortable situation saying whether I like it or not. But saying which one I prefer out of the two, I'm more than happy to do that. And I prefer Prodigal's Club rather than Last Will. And the main reason for that is, whilst they share some similarities in terms of mechanics, in Last Will, you are drawing a whole bunch of cards from face down stacks. And the more you draw, the more chance you have of getting the cards that you want. But essentially, you are drawing blind from a deck. Prodigal's Club, you always see what you're drawing. So that suits me a lot better. Now, both of them are relatively abstract games with a setting, I feel. But I quite like the mechanics more of Prodigal's Club, not just because of the fact that you draw the cards, but the other little sort of mini games within Prodigal's Club I prefer as well. So out of the two, Prodigal's Club is the one that I prefer. Right, let's go to the chat. Patrick, hello Patrick, you got Prodigal's Club free, never looked at it. Give it a go. It plays up to 5. It's not overly complicated. And as I say, if you can get past the fact that it's a series of little mini games, then yeah, I quite like it. Now, before we carry on, got a very special guest for you who I've locked in the room. I've just got to find her. Bear with us a minute. She's gone and hid. Bramble. Come here, you. Come on. Come in. Oh. Here we go. Right. She's hidden behind the mattress. So, very special guest. Bramble, who's been sat in this room for 15 minutes, not been able to get out. Say hello, Bramble. There you go. As you can see, Bramble's a little bit shaved. Bramble has been in hospital a lot recently. She's now out of hospital, which is good news that she's out of hospital, but unfortunately it's bad news with regards to her future. So I thought I'll give her this opportunity to say hello to everybody. She's been a part of my life for 8 years, and I'm going to get upset. I don't know how much longer she'll be with us. So she's completely oblivious to everything that's going on. She's perfectly happy at the moment, but let's just let her out a minute. Oh, there you go, darling. Yeah, with cats with kidney problems, once their levels start to rise, they get iller and iller. So anyway, right. That's Bramble. Been trying to get her on a rules video actually for a while now, but every time I do, it's she's nowhere to be seen. And I say I had to effectively lock her in this room for 10 minutes just before the start, and then she went hiding. Hi Edward, she's 8, which is too young. We actually had 2 cats. They were both sisters. We got them when they were 6 months old, and both of them had kidney failure when they were 4 years old, which is not when a cat should have kidney failure. Cats, we've been told normally when they get a lot older, when they get maybe 8, 10, 12, 15 years old, that kidney failure is a common way for them to go. For both of them to have got it when they were about 4 years old, clearly there was something else that happened. Bramble just about managed to survive it. Pickle didn't, unfortunately. And we've been living on, borrowed time effectively. We knew that her kidneys were damaged. But Bramble was in the 2% of cats who seem to get better after acute kidney failure, which is what she had. Over the last 4 years, her levels have gradually started to return more to normal, which is, as I say, it's in the 2% of cats. Most of them, that once they have kidney failure, they get damaged and they will just progressively get worse. So after she had the kidney failure, we thought that we might only have 6 to 12 months with her, and we've had 4 years. Again, we have no idea what caused it this time. It's a complete and utter mystery, but this time the damage is a lot worse. Anyway, let's move on to happier things. Other questions that I've had on. Oh, lots of other people on the chat. Hello, Leanne. Thank you very much. Question: can you help me comparing Kepler 3042 with Pulsar 2849? Yeah, I can actually. The difference between them is 193. There you go. That's the difference. No, to be honest, hopefully other people in the chat can help you with this. Kepler 3042, I've heard of, but I don't really know that much about. I do need to look into it because I think a couple of people whose opinions that I respect have said it's quite good, which isn't always the, I sometimes, it's interesting because you find these reviewers, they like the same type of games I do, and then suddenly they absolutely love a game that you hate. It just comes completely out of left field. So Kepler 3042 compared to Pulsar 2849, I can't compare the two, but maybe somebody on the chat can. Edward from Heavy Card Buddy saying that there's a good video on Kepler. I don't know who did it. Some American guy with a beard probably. But anyway, yeah, I'll look into that. Right. Hi Matt. Thank you for joining us. I've spent all day talking to Matt about Rulebook. Okay, questions from Simon Roadhouse, who I'm not sure is in the chat or not, but he's asked me what my favorite key game is. Now, some people will know that I've become friends with Richard Breeze over the last few years and that I've been involved in Keeper. I did the rules video for it. Many people wish I did the rule book for it as well. But I've only played Keyflower, Key to the City of London, and Keeper. So I was aware of the key games, but I've never played any of the earlier ones. I'm not sure whether I'd like them or not. A lot of them are very well respected. Some of them, I think, in Richard's own words, are a little dated now. If he was to, I'm not saying he is, but if he was to re-release some of those old games, he'd probably make changes to them because things have moved on. I do like all three of them, but I would probably say, I don't know, I need to play Keeper a bit more because Keeper's clever, but Keyflower is probably the more solid game, I think, overall. But I'd need to play both of them a couple of times, relatively soon together to see which my favorite one would be. What key game would you recommend for a key beginner? Probably Key to the City of London. I think it's a little lighter version of Keyflower. It's not that, it's not a light game by any stretch, but it's probably a little bit more accessible. But if you can wait till this year, Richard is working on Keyflower, the card game. I don't know if that's secret or not. If it is secret, I've just told everybody, but let's hope it's not secret. Which is going to be a key game because it's Keyflower, the card game, but I don't think it's going to have the same elements that his key games are known for, which is they're all quite clever. They're all a little, I'm not going to say heavy because Edward's listening and he'll slate me for saying that they're all heavy, but they do have some meat on it. And I'm suspecting that Keyflower, the card game, will be a lighter version. But yes, Key to the City of London, if we're ever at an event together, I'll happily bring it and teach you how to play. Graham says that Key Market is one of his favorites. So he's played more of them than me. Right, what else have we got? Any other questions in the chat before I move on? Patrick says he appears to have issues with rules that others see as okay rule books. How do editors and publishers deal with people who learn in a different way? It's a good question, and I've been in that as well. There are people out there who say that a rule book, which I think is a pretty good rule book, they say it's terrible. And I think, well, if it's terrible, and me, I'm one of the fussiest people in the world, and I'm a rulebook editor. And if I think it was okay, and if I was able to read through that rulebook and I was able to learn how to play the game from the rulebook, and any questions that I had in the game, I could find the answers to in the rulebook the good. It's done its job. And then some people will say it's a terrible rulebook, and I'm like, well, how can it be terrible? And then conversely, there will be rule books where, you know, I think the rule book's terrible, and there'll be people going, no, it's absolutely fine. And I find it difficult to understand from their point of view how they can say it's fine when me and my friends sat down to try and play it and were not able to play the game from the rulebook and ended up with a million questions that we had to go into BGG to answer. That means the rulebook's not good, yet some people say it's okay. So you're always going to get that difference of opinion. But what you're touching on is different people learn in different ways. And, you know, and that you can have a good rule book, but for some people it's not a good rule book, because even though everything is in there and it's correct, it might be structured in a way which isn't conducive to some people's learning styles. And you can't really do that. It's almost impossible. Like, a lot of people really hate the Fantasy Flight Games 2 rulebook approach, and some people really do like it. You know, I can see the benefits and the disadvantages, and I've used a lot of them, and I found that it works for me. So, but I know it doesn't work for some people. Right, Edward from Heavy Cardboard. Plans for 2018 cons. I've got 15 events this year. So I've just done the first one, HandyCon, last weekend. I have the City of Games, which is in Bristol, which is in 3 weeks' time or 2.5 weeks' time. Then after that, I have AirCon, which is up in the north of England, beyond the wall, where there's all these zombies and things like that. After that, I'm going over to the Czech Republic, which is not really a con, but it's 5 days with the guys from CGE helping develop their new games. I have Baycon, which is in Exeter. It's like 15 minutes down the road from me. That's in April. I have UK Games Expo in June. I have Origins in June. Gen Con in August. What's after August? Probably Essen in October. I don't think I've got one between then. Then I've got BGG Con. And then I've got my own events that I do. GridCon, Gaming Rules in Devon convention. There's 2 of them a year, one in July around the time of my birthday, and one in November. And then last year I did Paul's Amazing Pre-Essen Games Weekend, which I might do another one of as well. So yeah, I think it's 15 events. John, next game that you will make a video of. Interesting question. The next game where there will be a video available that I've already done is Knights of Fire. Knights of Fire, I had to have the video done by the 7th of January, and the Kickstarter has been delayed. It's not out yet. It should be out soon, I've been told. I'm hoping later this week or maybe next week. So the Knights of Fire video is the next video that you will see from me going live, but I have already done it. The next rules video that I'm actually planning to do, I don't know. I'm in a rulebook writing phase at the moment for the next 2 months, I think. So I don't have any rules videos as far as I know planned. I need to, with everything that's been going on in my personal life, that's had a knock-on effect to all of my scheduling. I really need to sit down with my calendar for the next few months and try and work out how busy I actually am, because I'm getting offers for rules video work, but I'm also getting a lot of offers for rulebook work. And you know, the rule video can take 35, 40 hours. It's a good chunk of time. So nothing planned as yet, although I think Vital Lacerda's new game Escape Plan, I think that I've got that in my calendar for March or April. And Agent Decker from Board and Dice, Matt actually spoke to me this afternoon and asked me to do a rules video for that game, ready for the Kickstarter launch. So if I can do that, I will, because I'm helping write the rule book for that game, and I'm helping do a little bit of development work on it. So doing the video, I'm already halfway there. I've already learned how to play the game, and I've had experience at teaching it. So yeah, that's that. Paul, follow up to the Slack question. Are you able to talk any more about what you were doing before Gaming Rules? Yes. So Paul has listened to me on various other podcasts, and I've made reference to a previous job. And all people know about it is that it used to pay quite a lot of money, and I hated it. So a little bit more about my background before Gaming Rules. I'm an IT person. I got into IT in the late 80s. My first job was working in a computer center in 1988, emptying paper off big mainframe computer printer things. I mean, this is in the days before PCs. So I progressed through. My career was always in IT, working on networking, IBM mainframes, doing all sorts of stuff. Then I went into desktop support. Then I went into server support. Then I went contracting, worked on year 2000 projects. And basically, it was always in IT. And all of my time in IT, I was, just a member of a team doing the job. Eventually, I took the step and moved into management. And that kind of happened half accidentally. But once I'd stepped into the role of team leader, I really enjoyed it. And I would have never have said 20 years ago that I was any manager or anything. But once I became a team leader, I was able to use all of my skills and knowledge that I'd learned. And I'm not talking technical skills here. I'm talking more organizational skills and put them to good effect. So the last real full-time job that I was an IT manager at the University of Exeter. I had a team of 15 people working for me. We did desktop support for the whole university. It was very busy, very stressful, and I loved it. That I actually really, really enjoyed. Some of the team that I worked with were fantastic. Some of them were not, some of them, but a lot of them were really good. And I really, really enjoyed that part of my job. I'd reached the point in my career that I'd always wanted to reach, I think, in that I was responsible for this whole team and everything was going on and it was all pretty much working, I thought, like a well-oiled machine, using procedures and policies that I'd put in place, and it was just great. However, working for a large company, there's internal politics. There was problems with other departments, problems with my manager, problems with all sorts of things. And that went on for way too long. And it went on over a course of 2 or 3 years. And I don't want to go into too much detail, but in the end, it turned into an absolutely horrible position where I was being bullied, forced into doing things that made me look bad, people setting me up for failure and then getting the blame for it. And it was just a very, very horrible situation. So I managed to get out of there, luckily, at the time when the university was in financial trouble and needed to let hundreds of staff go. And they went, yeah, and that was it. And I left. Gaming Rules actually started 6 months before that because I was always planning to get out and I needed a way, I needed something to do. So I started Gaming Rules as an experiment to see if it would work so that when I did leave, at least I had something to fall back on. I had no idea at the time that I would be working 50 to 70 hours a week, every week for the last 3 years without a break. So yeah, there's definitely a market for it. So anyway, that's a quick answer to that question. What have we got? Will there be a Gen Con Jaffa Cake challenge? The Jaffa Cake thing has kind of taken off. Pretty much everywhere I go now, I take a pack of Jaffa Cakes with me. For those people who I taught games at HandyCon, many apologies, I forgot to take the Jaffa Cakes with me. But generally speaking, yes. It's become one of those sort of running jokes that I'll have Jaffa Cakes available, and that if people demo a game, then whoever wins the game then will get a Jaffa Cake. Manacon, sorry, Leanne. Yes, Manacon. It's funny I forgot that one because that's my favourite UK convention. Apologies to people from HandyCon, Baycon, and everything else, but I just like Manacon. I first went to Manacon in the 80s. I'm not saying I went every year since the 80s because I had a break for sort of 15 years. But Manacon, great location. It's cheap. The main hall is a good size. The organisers are great, and I just really like it. So yes, I will be doing Manacon. Oh, and I might be doing HandyCon in August. So that's probably be 17 then. Right. Why is Nussfjord on the shelf? Well, I've just done my review video for it. So I thought, well, if I took it down, there'd be a blank spot. And there's already a blank spot here. So I just thought I'll put it on the shelf. So yeah, the next review video, which is filmed, I'm finishing editing it tomorrow, and that should hopefully be out tomorrow morning, is one of my, I'm not going to say a 5-minute review because I can't get these done in 5 minutes. It's like 8.5 minutes. So I'll call it a review under 10 minutes. So that's my next review video as voted on by my Patreon supporters. What else? It's a different game in that box. It's actually there's nothing in the box. It's just an empty box. These are my new shelves that I bought. I don't really want to put anything too heavy on them in case they fall down. Couldn't find Jaffa Cakes in Asda next door to HandyCon. Are they in the cakes or biscuit? Yeah. Good one, Andy. There's an ongoing thing whether Jaffa Cakes are cakes or biscuits. So, right, let's go on to some more questions. What have we got? Hang on a minute, this is not working. Let's make this bigger. Oh, there we go. Right. What was the most fun video to record? I don't know, actually. It depends on your definition of fun, you know, because I have fun moving wooden cubes around a board for 3 hours and not saying anything to anybody. That's my idea of fun. So there are some videos that I have done for games which I particularly enjoy myself, and those videos have been very enjoyable to make, but I wouldn't have said that they were fun to make. Probably the fun one is probably the one that I did for That's a Question, which has a disappointing number of views on YouTube. If you haven't seen it, please just go and watch the first minute of it. It's my rules video for That's a Question. It's a silly party game, and I wanted to do the video so that it tried to keep with that fun theme. And I don't think I do humor very well, but having watched that video, maybe I do, because I thought it was quite funny. Another one from Simon. He's got loads of questions. If I was to buy a game that you have done a rules video for, what game would it be and why? Bonus points if you then send me that game. I really can't say. You know, I've done rules videos for a lot of games now, and I don't know. You'll have to go and watch all of them and then decide which one you want. I mean, if you tell me your particular preference for a game, then I can try to narrow it down. But it's hard to say, because I've done some rules videos for very, very different games. Yeah, it depends what you want. Do you have any tips for quickly digesting the rules of a larger game? Oh, I do this all the time. I think read through the rules first and sort of skim read them. And hopefully other people on the chat can contribute here and say, if you've got a game with like a 20, 30 page rule book, what do? Do you sit down with all the components and read it word for word from start to finish? Or do you give it a glance and just have an overview first? I'm not sure. So let's go back to the chat, see if we've had any other questions. There's a coin from Nusfield. They get everywhere. Here we go. Right. Paul Harris, do you have any desires to design and publish your own game ever? Somebody else asked this one as well. Somebody else asked this one, I think, on the Board Game Geek Guild. So regarding me and design of games, I designed my first game in 1984, 85, and it was a role-playing game based on the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon that was out at the time. So that is probably the first thing that I ever designed myself. And I say designed, I probably wrote a load of scribbly bits on 2 pieces of paper and then never did anything about it. Over the last 30 years, I have been wanting to design a game. I have had that burning itch inside me to design a game. And it's mainly from playing lots and lots of games that I really, really like, and then thinking, oh, I can do that as well, but I'll do something a bit different. So in the early 90s, I was playing a play-by-mail game, and it might have been play-by-mail or play-by-email, I can't remember. And it was about building up different fantasy forces and then moving around a map and fighting and everything else. And I thought, I want to make a board game of that, because I was playing board games at the time. So I came up with this idea for a board game where it was a hex-based board, and the hexes were different terrain types. And then you would roll dice at the start of your turn, and depending on what the dice were rolled, it would depend on which of those terrain types generated resources. And then players would get those resources, and they'd use those resources to build armies, which would then fight each other. And then Settlers of Catan came out. I was like, ah, right, that's got hexes where you roll dice to see what resources they generate. So I've designed many games which have then later on, somebody's used my idea. Another time, if you ever catch me at a convention, let me tell you about the story of Pursuit of Happiness, because I pretty much designed that game, but never actually published it. So that monkey has been on my back for a long time. However, a few years ago, I decided I've got to get this monkey off my back. And I designed a game to completion, and it is there. It's in a box in my games room, and it works. It's called, I don't know, it changed its name a few times. Earth 2, Brave New World. It's been set in medieval England, it's been set on Mars, it's been set in the futuristic space stations, and it's also been set in an alternative 1984 world underground. The theme doesn't really matter for the game, it's the mechanics of it, and I have designed it to completion. It is a playable game. I'm not 100% happy with it, but I've done it the monkey's off my back. I've still got ideas in my head for other games that I really want to design, but I just don't have the time or the mental capacity, because I know what it takes, not just to design the game, but to go through that development process. And also, you know, I was one of those people who thought, oh, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that. Now that I'm getting older, I realize what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. And I think I'm good as a game developer, but as a game designer, I don't think that's one of my strong points. So I'm choosing to focus my efforts on things where I feel I'm better at than actually, you know, designing games. Right, okay, some other questions. Let's just scroll up, see what we're missing. Derek's here. Hello, Derek. +1 for the squirrels. Joshua's here. Hello, Josh. Dara says you haven't watched the That's a Question video. Go and watch that one. Oh yeah, Patrick, the walking into the tree in the start of the Codenames video. That was funny as well. The first Codenames video, I fell over. And I did that about 4 or 5 times and ended up hurting my knee. So the second Codenames video, I decided I was just going to walk into something, which was less damaging. Right, what have we got? Do you prefer to learn as you play, or prefer it all up front and ask questions as you go? Well, you know, my style is learn as you play. That's pretty much the method I prefer to learn. I am going to be doing a video on this at some point about my demo method that I use at conventions. But with some tweaks, that demo method can actually be adopted to your regular gaming group. And it's very difficult to know where to draw the line on what to tell people beforehand. But ultimately, if you write off your first game as a learning game, and you're all learning it as you go, then it's okay that you throw rules in along the way within reason. You don't want to throw it, for example, sulking. Quarter of the way through your game, you have to feed your people, and if you can't feed them, you lose points, right? Springing that rule onto somebody at that instant when it happens is totally unfair. So I'm not saying keep really important rules from people until it happens. But like in Keeper, you do not need to explain the winter fair tiles at all until you've been playing for an hour, because they don't come out until later on in the game. And knowing that they come out and how they work makes no impact whatsoever on what you're doing for the first season. So there are, I think, I mean, I don't want to sit down and listen to an hour or an hour and a quarter's worth of rules before making a move the first time I play the game. Because even if I know every single rule of that game, if I've never played it before, I'm not going to know what's good and what's not good. So the first game is pretty much a write-off learning game anyway. So yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I prefer to learn a game using my teaching method. I think my teaching method works fine for conventions, but that's also saying that I don't need to know every single rule of the game beforehand. I just need to know roughly what's going to happen, and then the rest of it we can fill in as we go. Right, what am I missing here? Cool, lots of chat, a lot more than I thought. So apologies if I missed something in the chat. There's various bits of conversation. I don't know if we can highlight questions. So anyway, yeah, Edward, at some point I need to sit down with you and teach you how to play a game that you don't know, because I'm pretty sure it will work. We just need to get you over that hurdle. And you're not the only one. I've used my method on people who said this will never work for me, and I've done it with them and they went, oh, actually that worked really well. So I would like the opportunity, if we can find a medium to heavy game that I know that you don't know, just run with it and let me go. I'm not trying to convince you, I just want you to experience it. Yeah, UK Games Expo. So if you don't know Pulsar 2849, it's not a heavy game, but it's a perfect game because I have been practicing using my method for that game. I've done it like 50 times now. So yeah, come and see me at UK Games Expo. Right. Andrew Mason was the one who asked about the designing a game. So yes, anybody who wants to play it at some point in future, Brave New World or Earth 2 or whatever it's going to be called. I think it's Brave New World now. It takes about 90 minutes. It's 4 players. It's open trading, which is not done in games really, and it kind of works. It's there's an auction mechanic in the game where you're taking buildings, and then the buildings will generate resources, but then you have to trade resources with the other players because you will have a building that requires somebody else's resources that you're not generating yourself. So, for example, I will buy your grain from you and I will turn it into bread at my bakery because I don't have my own grain. Anyway, that's kind of what it's about. So Andy wants to know if I'm allowed to have the original artwork for the board of any game of your choice signed by the artist, which and why, not Spyring, and he'd choose something by Ian O'Toole. Ian O'Toole's artwork is fantastic. Lisboa is just a work of art. I mean, literally, it's a work of art. If I was to pick one game, it would probably be, and I haven't thought about this beforehand, but I'm going to say Pillars of the Earth by Michael Menzel. Pillars of the Earth is a fantastic game, but I bought it based on the artwork on the board. That's how shallow I am. Turns out the game's fantastic, with a house rule. So yeah, I love his art style, and he's done loads. So he's done Legends of Andor, he's done that, he's done Cuba, he's done Agra was his latest one. But Pillars of the Earth, I just think the board for that looks gorgeous. Definitely would like to have that. I wonder how that would actually look as a piece of art, because we see it as the game board with the spaces. I wonder if you remove the spaces, I wonder if it would still work as a piece of art. I'm not sure. Right, what have we got? Graham, what classic game would you like to see reprinted in deluxeified form? Civilization, the original one. Well, Advanced Civilization. I'm in the percentage of people that prefer Advanced Civilization to Civilization. I have actually picked out my own version. I did a massive big map, which I got from Google satellite images. So I spent ages on that. I've replaced all the tokens with wooden cubes. So I've kind of done a pimped up version myself, but it would be nice to have a super deluxe version of Civilization. Even though I'd never get around to playing it because it takes 12 to 15 hours to play. Right, what have we got next? Andy's got Pillars of the Earth, but not played. When you come to play it, let me know. As I say, I have a house rule, which for me turns the game from an 8 out of 10 to a 9.5 out of 10. There's a big part of the game, drawing the master builders out of the bag, that can, and not always, but it can produce very swingy results. And there is a house rule that fixes that one part of the game. It's a fairly simple tweak, but it removes the biggest random factor of the game and makes it a lot more playable for me. Right, Leanne wants to know which rulebook I am most proud of and which one you feel is the most complex you've worked on. Robinson Crusoe and Robinson Crusoe. And the reason for that is Ignacy gave me the job with Robinson Crusoe. It's interesting because what they'd done is they'd realized that the original English version of Robinson Crusoe, and I'm not talking the Z-Man edition here, I'm talking the original first edition Portal Games English version of Robinson Crusoe, random words on a piece of paper, throw it in the bin, makes no sense whatsoever. And I'm not insulting them by saying that because they will say exactly the same thing. Z-Man picked it up and Z-Man did the second edition. They redid the rulebook themselves. It was a lot better. It wasn't great, but it was a lot better. And then Pegasus Spiel did the German version of the game. And what they did is they completely rewrote the entire rulebook, restructured it in its entirety, and that was generally regarded as the best version of the rulebook, but it was in German. So when Portal Games were doing the new version, they went, well, let's just get the German version and let's get it translated. So that's what they did. They got the German version of the rulebook, done by Pegasus, and then they got it translated, and then they gave it to me. And Ignacy said, this won't be a big job because the rulebook's fine and it's just been translated. You just need to correct some of the English. However, it was a big job. I don't know how many hours it took, but it took months to do. The translation was generally okay. There was no big problems with it, apart from they translated so where the rulebook contains lots and lots of examples using actual card names, What the translator had done was use the German card names and then translated that word into the English word, rather than looking at the actual English cards to see what the thing was. So most of the examples through the rule book, they were all using completely the wrong words and completely the wrong card texts that didn't match the actual card. So I had to fix all of them. But the reason why I'm proud of it is that I took an opportunity to say to Ignacy, look, I could just fix a few problems with this rule book and fix some of the translation issues. Or if you want me to do, I can go back through 5 years of FAQ and really, really make the definitive rule book for Robinson Crusoe. Because it isn't just as simple as FAQ. Anybody who's read the blog article that Ignacy wrote about working with me will know that I was like a dog with a bone. I would not let go until I got absolutely definitive answers from some of these questions. And even though there is an official FAQ and a 65-page unofficial FAQ, there were still some unanswered questions. And there was a question which has been answered one way in the official FAQ, another way in the unofficial FAQ, and then Ignacy posted on a Polish forum 5 years ago a totally different answer. And I found that forum and I Google translated it. And I said to Ignacy, you've answered this question 3 different times with 3 different answers. I would have pinned you down right now and tell me what it should be. And then when he decided, I went, right, this is now the rule of the game. So it was a huge amount of work, but, and you know, I got paid for the time that I worked on it. But the point is, I wanted to make the definitive rule book for that game because I felt that the game deserved it. And the end result was something that I was very proud of. And it was probably the most complex game as well, because you know Robinson Crusoe, it's got, oh, there's this, and then there's this exception, and there's, oh, but what about this, and what about this? And Ignacy actually allowed me a little bit of freedom within it to change one of the cards. Because the other thing I did is I did all of the card text, and that game's got like 250 cards or something. And I had to rewrite a lot of the text for a lot of the cards. Because the Z-Man edition was okay, but we didn't have access to the Z-Man files because they were Z-Mans. So I only had access to the original Portal Games files where, as I say, the text was not particularly great. So yes, that's that. Right, let's go back to the chat just to see if there's anything else. Can I tell you anything about the ongoing game Feudum? No, other than Heavy Cardboard did a live playthrough of it, I think last night. So I can't tell you anything about it, but pop on over to the Heavy Cardboard channel, watch their playthrough, and they will do it. Leanne, please let us know the rule. Does it use the expansion? So Pillars of the Earth, going back to that, I used to play games online on a website called Brettspielwelt. This was years before Yucata and Voyageur and all of those ones. This was a way you could play board games live, and it was only live. There was no turn-based version of it. And I played Puerto Rico on there, and I played Pillars of the Earth on there. And that was the official implementation of the game. And that used this house rule, which was enough for me to say, oh, okay, enough people think that this house rule is important enough that it actually became the rule in that online version of the game. In the expansion, I'd heard that they introduced that rule. So I thought, brilliant. They, you know, like Fantasy Flight Games, when they release an expansion for a game, they fix some of the problems with the base game. So I'd heard that they'd introduced that rule with the expansion, but it turns out they've only introduced that rule with the 5 to 6 player expansion. So they've basically said, if you're playing with 5 to 6 players, you should use this rule. But they don't mention using that rule with with less than 5 players. So always use it. The rule is basically, instead of putting 3 master builders in the bag, you only put 2 master builders in the bag. And then the first player to place a master builder on the board puts their third one that you'd set aside at the start of a line. And then the second player to place their master builder on the board puts it next to it, and so on and so forth. Once everybody has placed 2 master builders on the board, you then place those third ones that are in the line in reverse player order. So if you are the first player to place on the board, you will also be the last. And if you're the last player to have placed on the board, you'll then place your final one first. It gets around the problem of all your 3 are at the bottom of the bag, which does happen. If it's not happened to you, well done, good luck, whatever. But it's happened to me, and it's happened to many people I know. And that is the biggest luck factor in the game, is the order in which those meeples are drawn out. So it fixes that problem. Graham, you still also play games on Brett Spielveld, hundreds of games of Puerto Rico. I think I'm at 350 games of Puerto Rico. I took a career break in 2003 because I was leaving one contracting job and I wanted a change of career. So I took a career break in 2003 and I spent 3 months playing Puerto Rico online about 3 or 4 times a day. Great use of my time. I'm still no better at it than I was then. Right, okay, so what other questions have we got in? Ben wants to know, do you find a difference in playing styles for players from different countries? No. There you go. I should do, but I don't. And I don't know why. You know, I play games with a lot of people from the UK. When I go to Essen, I play games or I demo games to people from a lot of nationalities. It's not just Germans that go to Essen. It's a whole variety of people. And then I get to spend quite a bit of time in America, where I'm demoing games generally to Americans. When I started going to all these international events, I was aware that there may be a difference in cultures and everything else. So some of my jokes that I make might not work, but they seem to. So I think maybe the gaming hobby sort of crosses those culture barriers that we've got. And when I'm demoing games to people, it doesn't matter whether they are German, American, English, Italian, or whatever. We have our own cultural differences and things we find funny, but I don't see people's nationality at all when I'm demoing a game to them. I just see a gamer. But yeah, other people on the chat might have a different opinion of that. I don't know. It's a good question. But yeah, I've not experienced it myself. What does your nightmare gaming session look like? Interesting one. Well, touching on what I said earlier on, a friend of mine, so I've taught Agra a few times now, and I teach Agra half using my demo method, because there's so many rules in Agra and there's so much going on, and so much of it you don't need to know at the start of the game. Yet, of course, you do need to know if you're going to plan a master strategy and you know the game really well. But at the start of the game, you don't need to know all of the ins and outs and all the little bits. So I probably teach 15 minutes worth of rules before starting to play Agra, and then I bring the rest in as we go along. Somebody the other day told me that they watched a demo of Agra and it was 1 hour 15 minutes before they'd moved a piece. I'd be asleep. Sorry, I can't listen to 1 hour 15 minutes of rules before I've even just moved anything. So I don't know what I'd do in that situation. If somebody was teaching me a game and we were half an hour in and we're still nowhere close to getting anywhere near, then that would be a problem for me. I don't want to step in and take over, but also I don't want to spend over an hour of my life listening to rules explanation for my first game, which is going to be a write-off anyway. Other things is other people at the table who are clearly not liking the game, who don't shut up about it. And that just brings it down for everybody. I've been guilty of doing this before. Now that I'm aware of it, I would probably try to avoid it more than I've done in the past. But I've seen it done, and it's not a nice thing to do. I've seen friends of mine do it. So it's just something that, you know, some of us do, but it's not nice. I mean, I'm talking, you know, light things here. Nightmare gaming session could be being forced to play a game of Munchkin for 3 hours. I'd just prefer to go home instead, I think. Or, you know, somebody rage quitting halfway through and wrecking the game for everybody, which I've done before as well. So, yeah, there's lots of things. Luckily, when I hear lots of stories about nightmare gaming sessions, I don't have any of those. I think I'm fairly selective about the people who I choose to play games with, so that I don't get myself into those situations which other people seem to. So I consider myself quite lucky in that situation. Right, Drum Phil, you asked how to tell which live comments are actually questions. Perhaps everybody begin your questions with a question mark. Good idea. Right, if you're posting a question in the chat, please put a load of question marks at the start of your question so that I can I can see it. Oh, and Patrick's been swearing, has he? All right. Naughty boy, Patrick. Right. Other questions that we've got. Do you think somebody will ever design a game called Rules Lawyer? The elevator pitch is each person is given the rules to the game. Players make real-time rulings to rules questions. Players stake their reputation on the various rulings, and eventual official rulings roll in, and this affects the players' reputations. That's an interesting idea for a game that I've never seen done before. So this happens a lot in gaming sessions. And I actually was having a discussion at HandyCon with somebody about this. I think it was Sally. So you're playing a game, you're in the middle of the game, and a ruling question crops up. Do you A, not look at anything at all online and just go, well, it's not clear in the rule book, so let's make a ruling right here, right now, let's stick with it and let's go with that until the end of the game? Or do you spend 20 minutes trawling through the FAQ to find the right answer? Now, some of you will do one and some of you will do the other. I'm somewhere in between. I have such a thing about wanting to play the game by the correct rules. If I have the internet to hand and I search for, we were playing Welcome to Centerville the other night, and a ruling question came up about the fate dice, and I went, this is such an important question. Let's just pause for 1 minute. You go make a coffee, you go to the loo, and I'll just look it up. Did a BGG search, didn't find it. Right, so we need to make a decision. And then I asked the question afterwards. I would not stop the game for 15, 20 minutes to look up the right answer, but I would stop the game for 1 minute to look up an answer if I have the internet there. So, side topic. The question is turning that into a game. So, so the game is that you're playing a game and player's been interrupted, and you have to say what you think the ruling is, and then later on you get what the actual ruling is, and you get points based on whether you're correct or not. Sounds like an interesting idea. I'm not sure it would actually work or not. So Joshua says he doesn't know if he can make the chat, but he has made the chat. What was the first game that got me into gaming? I would have to, well, it depends, because I got into gaming obviously when I was young. I got into gaming then, and I played silly little games when I was a kid, so they don't count. When I was 12 or 13, I got into the fighting fantasy novels, which led me onto Dungeons and Dragons. D&D was stocked in a local shop, and he also stocked board games. And it was at the time when Games Workshop started doing board games. So forget everything you know about Games Workshop now, but in the mid-80s, early 80s, mid-80s, Games Workshop did board games, and they did Railway Rivals, of all things, which is it's a Euro game. It's a bit random with the dice, unless you use an average dice, but it's a board game. It's a Euro game, and I got that, and I played that, and I really liked it. I got lots of other games that Games Workshop did at the time. Obviously, Talisman, moving on, Warrior Knights, Blood Royale. They did a lot of games. They did a lot of good games, and they did a lot of games which now I wouldn't touch with a barge pole. But they were the first board games that I sort of played. I dabbled a bit with Civilization, History of the World, Acquire, Axis and Allies. I played a lot of Axis and Allies when I was younger, because I've always had a World War II thing. But then as I didn't really, that board gaming was sort of a bit on the side. It wasn't really my main thing. Role playing was my main thing. Card games was my main thing. Got back into board gaming in the very late 90s. And the board games that I was playing at the time were basically the ones that were being played at my local club. So Martin's probably not listening to this, but Martin used to run the Hemel Games Club, which was a few board gamers and a load of people playing Magic the Gathering. And when I quit Magic the Gathering in 98, 99, I basically moved over to the board gaming side of the group, where they were playing Formula D, Primordial Soup, Tigris and Euphrates, that kind of thing, Settlers of Catan, and I played a few of them. So it was those types of games which helped me get effectively into the board gaming hobby seriously, and that's been it since. So we're coming up for now almost 20 years since board gaming has been my primary hobby, and I'm passionate about it. Right, another question in from Heavy Cardboard. Right, now this is another good question, and I get asked this probably once a month, so I'm happy to answer it here. Are you finding yourself having a lot less time to game for fun than you would? So the other question I get asked is, now that my life is board games and I am writing and editing rule books and I'm doing game development and I'm doing videos, basically it's my job, it's my life, it's my job, it's everything. From the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed. Do I still enjoy playing board games? And the answer is absolutely 100% yes. I am very, very pleased that the board gamer in me is still there. And on a Friday night when we sit down and we play games, or the opportunity presents itself for me to play a game, if the game's okay, I'm generally loving it. And in the last few months, I have played some absolutely fantastic games that I have absolutely loved playing. So my enjoyment of playing games has not gone away. Everything now, though, has an extra layer on it. If I'm playing a game and there's something a bit quirky with the graphic design, I'll spot it and I'll want to say something about it, because I can't turn that off. If I'm reading a rule book that's not clear, or if I'm playing a game where something doesn't feel right, I kind of want to, get involved. And, I can't keep my mouth shut. And I always like butting in and telling people what I think about it. And sometimes that is not the thing that you're supposed to do. But if we take Gentis, for example, or Gentis, or however you want to pronounce it, TMG's new deluxeified version has just gone live on Kickstarter today. I've played the original version of the game, which I had to do in order to learn how to play it, to do the rules video for it. And whilst I was playing it, I felt that there were some graphical design issues with the game itself. So I said to TMG, would you like to hear my thoughts on what graphical design issues I had with the game and what I think would improve it? And they said, sure, let us know. And then about a week later, I heard back from their graphic designer, and he said, here's the new board. You might like it because we've incorporated all of your suggestions. That makes me, a lot of people won't know that. And to be honest, they might have been making those changes anyway. I don't know. But the fact that he sent me the board afterwards and said, we've made the changes that you requested. As I say, a lot of people are not going to go, oh, look at the board. Oh, those icons are clear. Paul Grogan did that. No, they're not. But it makes me happy to know that people are going to be playing that deluxeified version of the game, and they're not going to have some of the issues that we had in it. So I like sticking my nose in sometimes where it's not wanted, because my entire drive in my whole life is just to try to make things better for everybody. That's what everything I do is all about, just trying to make things better. Now, I go about that sometimes in a very blunt way, and I'll tell people, your rulebook's crap, we need to rewrite it. I'm not being cruel. Well, I am, but I'm being cruel to be kind. Anyway, I've drifted off a bit here. So what have we got? Have you played Warlock of Firetop Mountain? Yes, Leanne. That was one of the games that I had, because the Fighting Fantasy novels, as I say, they were a massive part of my childhood, and they were a massive reason for where I am now. And I said this to Ian Livingstone on Twitter once, and I've still yet to meet him in person and say, thank you for helping me get where I am now. And the Warlock of Firetop Mountain is one of those early Games Workshop games that I played and absolutely loved, because it was Warlock of Firetop Mountain, and I loved the book. Now, I probably would not touch that game with a barge pole at all. It's probably just move around, roll dice, pick up items. It's your very classic 80s Games Workshop style game, which I probably wouldn't even want to play just for nostalgia issues. I probably wouldn't want to. Right, Paul was saying Hell was fun, but yeah, I remember Paul back 20 years ago. That was good. Brandon's here, so he's asking for a video review spoiler, but did you like Nusfjord? Find out tomorrow. The review is going live. It's an 8.5-minute review. I want to keep the reviews to under 10 minutes, but it does mean that I can't go into as much detail as I want to, really. So I don't want to start stretching them out. Like my podcast ended up going from 20 minutes to 45 minutes. I don't want to start stretching out my 5-minute reviews that are now 10-minute reviews into 20-minute reviews. Not that I'm getting that many views anyway, but I figured, if it's a short review, people are more likely to watch it. And I do try and just focus on the key points of the game. So yeah, you'll find out later this week about Nusfjord. Edward's already saying, yes, I do like it. Well, yeah, find out tomorrow. I do mention the tiny coins, though. right, what's this question? In these very weeks, what do you usually play, stroke like to play? I'm not sure what you mean by in these very weeks. What I usually like to play, I have a variety of different games that I like to play. I love my medium to heavy Euros. So if you were to say, are we going to play Lisboa this Friday night with the right people at the right time, I will absolutely love playing Lisboa. Dragon Castle, a family style game. I played it 5 times this month. Absolutely love playing it. So for me, I like playing games of, different taste. It isn't, I only like playing medium to heavy Euro games, and these ones, they're okay. I don't like them as much. No, Dragon Castle, Flamme Rouge, things like that. I am just absolutely loving playing those games at the moment. And I also like playing heavy games as well. So David's on. Welcome, David. Thank you for joining in. Hope you've had your Chinese. He's not got any questions. He just popped in and say hello. Right. Misty Fair, any tips on how to get a board gaming group together or pitfalls in getting a group together? Touching on what I said earlier on, I think I've been fairly lucky. There are people out there, might be listening right now, who don't have a regular gaming group. And I've never been short of one. That means I have had to make an effort to find gaming groups or start gaming groups wherever I've gone. But there's always been a gaming group around me. And some of them I've started myself. Any tips on starting one? Facebook groups and meetup groups. Meetup is, I don't know if Meetup is worldwide, but it's certainly UK based. There are gamers everywhere. When I started the Columpton Board Games group 2 years ago now, Columpton is where I live. It's a small town in the UK, and I started the Columpton Board Games group in order to try and give something back to the community. The idea was that I would advertise it for non-gamers, people who had never played any modern board games whatsoever, who just wanted to come along for a night as a way of getting out of the house, trying one of these new games, seeing if they like it, and giving them an opportunity to socialize with other people. That was the idea of me setting up the group. That's not really worked. However, there are about 10 regular people now who attend. And that is because it turns out there were gamers in Columpton that I didn't realize. And now they've become friends. And now I've got another gaming group that meets every 2 weeks in Columpton. To be fair, a couple of the members were not gamers beforehand and just did come along to see what it was like. And they've become really good friends. So the original idea I had for setting up the group didn't work out, but the result of the group and the fact that I've now got this new circle of friends that all live in my town, and I can hand on heart say they're all really nice people and I really enjoy spending time with them. So yes. What is your 5-year plan for gaming rules? Carry on doing what I'm doing. I have no plans. The thing I would like to do in the next 5 years is something that those people who follow me on Twitter know that I complain about this all the time. And it's not me complaining. It's me being upset about it and venting my upsetness and frustration online. Some people don't like that. Sorry. But views on my videos seem to be dropping in the last year. If there was something I could do to try and increase the viewership, then that's what I would do. Because although Gaming Rules seems to be a success and I'm working every hour I can, and people say the videos are great, people say the rule books are great, when the number of views that you're getting on the videos are dropping, and obviously the Gloomhaven one's an exception because it's now the #1 game on BGG, but views on my other videos that I'm putting out are dropping. Views and listeners on my podcast, I've been doing it for 3 years, I've had some great guests, is dropping. And I'm doing everything I can to try and promote it and do everything right. So my 5-year plan is to try and just build up those views, really. I don't intend on doing everything different. I want to carry on doing the rules videos. I want to carry on doing the rule books. I just want to carry on doing more of what I'm doing because I love doing it. But obviously the Patreon thing has changed because I'm now doing this and I'm now doing the monthly video logs and I'm now doing the reviews. which I would not have been able to do without the Patreon support. So that's a kind of something that I've changed, and I'm having to give up probably about 30 hours of paid work a month in order to produce the Patreon content. It's something like 20 to 30 hours a month of work that I'm now having to do. But yeah, I just want to carry on doing it. Oh, David's gone, so yeah. Right, Christopher 88, he's from Australia, he's lived in Exeter for 2 years. Do you know the guy who runs Meeple's Corner in Crediton? Yes, Christoph, friends with him. So yeah, if you're in Exeter, give me a shout, drop me an email. Come along. I help run the open night gaming group that meets in Exeter on a Monday night. But yeah, so or you lived in Exeter for 2 years. So I don't know if you are still in Exeter, but if you are, drop me a message. And we can sort something out. But yeah, I know Christoph, he runs Meeple's Corner, and I've seen him a few times. Right, Martin Abrahams, what Patreon content? Well, this video is only possible because of my Patreon support. My monthly video logs are due to the Patreon support. My podcast is due to the Patreon support. What else? The review videos are Patreon support, and I'm hoping to do other things as well. One thing I don't want to do, which I know a lot of people do, and a lot of people do very well out of it, is they have Patreon only content. I really don't want to do that. I want all of my content to be available for everybody. And I know if I made Patreon only content, I'd probably get more supporters. It's just, it's not something I want to do. It's like the people who run Kickstarters or Patreons who say, we need your support, we need your money. If you don't give us this money, we're going to stop doing it. That's fair enough. You know, that's the angle they've chosen to take. It's a little odd when they've been doing it for 2 years, and then they say we now can't carry on doing it unless we raise a certain amount of money. That seems a bit odd, but that's just not my style. I don't want to go on with oh, you've got to save Paul Grogan. I need a certain amount of money per month, otherwise I'm going to stop doing it. I don't want to do that. Which means my Patreon is nowhere near as financially successful as some other ones. But you know, that's just part of it. So yeah, your parents still live there. May do next time. Yeah, if you are visiting Exeter, just drop me a message, geekmail, email, whatever. You're more than welcome. Gaming Rules HQ has an open gaming night on a Friday. It isn't that people can just literally turn up. I do like people to tell me they're going to turn up beforehand. But yeah, if you're ever around in the area, you're more than welcome to come into the gaming group in Exeter, or as I say, to Gaming Rules HQ. Gaming Rules HQ is just a fancy way of saying my house. So right, I think that's all the questions so far. Let's go back to the BGG Guild. Mark wants to know, what is the one game you wish you had been asked to work on the rulebook for? First Martians, without a shadow of a doubt. So a lot of people will know the problems with the First Martians rulebook, and they'll know the story behind the First Martians rulebook. And Ignacy wrote another blog article about this a week or two ago, where I think he's finally accepted the criticism that he received for the First Martians rulebook, which I think he spent the first 2 months in denial by basically saying, no, the rulebook's great, the rulebook's fine, there's nothing wrong with the rulebook. And 95% of the people out there were saying the rulebook is absolutely horrendous. There are some people out there, going back to what Patrick said earlier on, who said the First Martians rulebook is absolutely fine, and they were able to play the game from the rulebook. I don't know how, because almost everybody I know, one person with the exception, was unable to play the game from the rulebook. They'd even watched Rodney's video, they'd read the rulebook twice, and they still weren't able to play, and they had to read 60 pages of FAQ. So anyway, the rulebook that first came out with that game, I think, you know, when such a high percentage of people are saying it's a terrible rulebook, because although the rulebook looked really nice and it was all well laid out, and I was actually involved in the final proofreading of it, I got sent that rulebook at a very late stage, and I looked through it, and I just fixed a few things here and there. I don't want to do that with a rulebook. I want to do what I did with Robinson Crusoe. I want to get a copy of the game. I want to sit down with the rulebook and actually try and play it. and I wasn't given that opportunity with First Martians. Ignacio, obviously, he's after the work that I did with them, they'd hired their own rulebook guy. So he obviously thought, we don't need to hire Paul to do this anymore. We've got our own internal person. We'll just get Paul involved at the end for little bits of proofreading. And I was like, okay, well, this might work. I don't know. But until I've sat down and actually played a game, then you don't really know whether the rulebook works or not. And I would have loved to have been given the time to sit down with First Martians and try and play it from the rulebook and go, wait a minute, I'm on my first turn and I've no idea what to do. It would have been a huge amount of work. It would have been a month or 2 months of work, because I would have played multiple games with multiple people. But I would have done a rulebook that was better than the one that got printed. So yeah, it's a shame I didn't get involved in it. I mean, you know, I wouldn't have had time to get involved in it because it's a massive, massive project. Right, let's just go back to the chat quickly, see if there's any other questions. Right, no other questions there. So, there's a guy here on the guild called Paul Grogan. Don't know who he is. He wants to know, is it right that Great Western Trail has just overtaken Castles of Burgundy in the BGG rankings? There's been a lot of talk about BGG rankings recently. I've got involved in some of those discussions. I have my own opinions on them. And my last podcast, podcast 56, I interviewed Scott Aldi from Board Game Geek, and we talked about the rankings. We talked about other things as well, but we talked about the rankings. You can love them or hate them. The rankings are what they are. It's an algorithm put together of all the people who have voted for the game. You cannot sit there and say the number one game should not be the number one game. It is, because tens of thousands of people have voted it highly, and the algorithm has added up all of those numbers, disregarded the trolls, and it's decided it's number one. It is the number one game because more people like that game. Well, no, more people like that game. Anyway, it's the algorithms. So the top 10 games are games that are really, really good games, and lots of people have voted them really highly. If they're not your top 10, that's fine. I don't think there'll be anybody whose top 10 matches the Board Game Geek top 10. I'm digressing. Which do I think is the better game? For me, Great Western. I love Castles of Burgundy. Absolutely love Castles of Burgundy. Great Western Trail was my favourite game of 2016. Joint favourite game. Peace Roading was the other one for different reasons. So Great Western Trail for me, if given a choice right now of which one I would play Great Western Trail. So I think Castles of Burgundy is an absolutely fantastic game, and I really love it. But for me, Great Western Trail. Edward's got to go. Thank you very much. Christina. Hello, Christina. Imperial Settlers could have been improved a lot. I think the Imperial Settlers rulebook is really good. I got Imperial Settlers. I learned how to play from the rulebook. This is going back a few years now, but there was one bit in it which wasn't clear, and it was a minor bit, and it was only one bit, and I think it was about when a card can be used twice in a turn or in a round, whatever. Can you use it both at the same time, or is it? I can't quite remember. But I found the Imperial Settlers rulebook pretty good. So yeah, I mean, when I was writing the 51st State Master Set, I basically took the Imperial Settlers rulebook and copied a lot of it word for word because I thought it was okay. Rules exceptions, masses of FAQs for card functions. Right. Now, Christina, you've touched on a very, very good topic here, and that is rulebook and cards. There are a few games that I have worked on as the editor of the rulebook, and I would like to think the rulebook is good. And I've read the rulebook, and I sent the rulebook to other people, and they read it, and they said it was okay. And other people have said to me, Paul, I was on the train on the way home, and I read your rulebook for X, and it read really, really well. Good job. And then they got home, and they started playing it. And at that point, they've got all the cards. And they're like, well, what does this do? I don't know how this works. It's telling me to do something. Going back to what I touched on earlier on, I want the whole game. I want a prototype of the game. I want the rulebook. I want everything. And I want to play it, and I want to sit and watch. I want to blind test that game with other people who don't know how to play, because that will drag out all of these fundamental questions of what does this card do? And when those questions are I mean, I'm not talking an exception of what happens if card 3 interacts with card 17. I'm talking about on your first game, you get these cards and you don't know what to do with them. That's a problem. And as I say, as an editor of a rule book, sometimes a game can come out where that is a problem. And it makes me uncomfortable because it's my name on the box or my name on the rule book. But if I wasn't given the opportunity to actually play through it myself, then it's hard, especially when I haven't even seen some of the card text. So, right, Paul's off for fish and chips. He's making me hungry. Andy, have I played Gaia Project? No. And I was talking to a friend of mine, HandyCon, I think, or it might have even been Steve on the way home from HandyCon. I can't remember. I don't want to play Gaia Project, which is unusual considering I really, really like Terra Mystica. And I think this is because if you gave me a new Vital Lacerda game, and I wasn't involved in that game in the development or the rulebook or the video for it, to learn how to play, because the time investment and the mental energy that I would have to invest in that game to then play it once a year, I don't know whether it's worth it. So I have Terra Mystica. Gaia Project might, for all I know, be the better game. I think the production quality is not good. I think it looks ugly. I don't like the graphic design. I don't know, and that's just me fussy. The game itself, I think it's a better game. But I haven't played Terra Mystica in like 2 years. So, you know, it's all about time we all have to play games. The same with Arkwright. Arkwright is probably a fantastic game. And I'm glad Edward's gone now, because he'll probably not like the fact that I'm deliberately... somebody taught me how to play a game we played about, and I realized that I would have to invest a lot of time and effort into learning that game in order to be able to enjoy it. And that's the point I'm getting at. The Lacerda game 3 times enjoying it, because the first 2 times are just like, we've no idea what we're doing and we're just learning the rules and we'll make a million mistakes and we've no idea of any strategy. Now when I play Lisboa, I'm like, right, I can enjoy this because I know what I'm doing. But I had to have put in that time and effort beforehand. And I have a lot less time and effort now than I used to before. So yeah, what game stings you the most when you are the loser? Nothing. Right now, where I am in my life, having been a sore loser 10 years ago or so, mainly because I got frustrated with myself. If I played a game and I'd played it 5 times, and then I played it against people who hadn't played it before and I came last, I would be frustrated and I would be angry. I'd be angry with myself because I'd be self-critical. Now, I'm happy to say that whether I win a game by a million points or come last in the game makes almost no difference to my enjoyment in the game. I like playing the game. I like spending time with the people who I'm playing the game with, and I like playing games with good mechanics. If the game doesn't have good mechanics, I'm not going to enjoy the game, but that's another thing. Whether I win or lose doesn't really matter. So yeah, no game stings me the most when I lose. I could play, I mentioned I've played Puerto Rico 350 times. I could sit down and play Puerto Rico now and come last. Wouldn't bother me in the slightest. Because when I play games, obviously you get better when you play games, and you generally don't make silly mistakes. But I don't play games in order to get better and better and better at them. I just enjoy playing the game. Obviously, if it's a move that clearly lost you the game, then I won't make that again. But I am not trying now to constantly improve and constantly learn and constantly get better every time I play a game. That's not to say that I don't take the game seriously. It's just that I'm not seeking that, improvement. Or win on second tiebreak. Oh, yes. What was that game we played there? Or won on second tiebreak? I can't remember what it was. Was it Dragon Castle? Can't remember. Right. Chewy wants to know what was my top game of 2017 and why. Lots and lots of people are publishing their top games of 2017 at the moment and getting thousands more views than any of my videos, going back to the views. So maybe I should do a top 10 of 2017. But I don't really want to. As for my number 1 game, it would have to be Gloomhaven. we've just got so much enjoyment out of Gloom. The experience of playing Gloomhaven has been fantastic. Yes, we are playing the same game, and we are playing it, I don't know, we played it maybe 22 times last year, 23. I've lost track of how many times we've played it. But although it is the same game with the same mechanics, almost every scenario has felt different to us. And the fact that we're progressing through our characters and through the storyline, people who know me know that I absolutely love the game. So yeah, Gloomhaven is probably my most favorite game that I played in 2017. It is a game that I got in 2016. So it doesn't count as the best game that was new to me in 2017. What I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to go back and look through all the games I played in 2017 and work out which one was my favorite, which is really hard to do because, as I say, I've played Flamme Rouge for the first time in 2017. Fantastic game. Absolutely love it. I've played Gentis, which I've only played 3 times. Absolutely love that as well. There's so many games that I played in 2017, which I absolutely love and would rate, a 9 out of 10. I'd have to go through each of them and try and pick which one would be my favorite. Rick and Victoria wants to know, are zombies and Cthulhu used too much? Yes. But they're both, Cthulhu is public domain. You can do a Cthulhu themed game now. You don't have to pay anybody any licensing rights. And Cthulhu and zombies sell games. So yes, there's too many of them out there. But if you're making a game and you can put a Cthulhu theme on it or a zombie theme on it, if you know it's going to sell more, then do it. For me, if I see a theme with zombies, it turns me off a game. But that's generally because games with zombies in are generally not medium to heavy Euros. They tend to be more your, random dice rolling, fighting, shooting, whatever. Cthulhu games, there's all sorts of different Cthulhu games, ranging from, Munchkin Cthulhu right through to something like Arkham Horror Living Card Game. They're both Cthulhu themed games, but they're very, very different. So for me, I think there are games out there. There are too many games out there with that category. I would always look twice. One thing that really bothers me, and I was talking to somebody about this last week, and I can't remember who it was. You're going to hear a lot of that. Is when people hear the theme of a game and say, "Oh, it must be good because it's got zombies in it," or "It must be good because it's Cthulhu," and I'm like, no, a game is not good just because, Firefly. Oh, it's a new Firefly game. Oh, that's going to be good because it's Firefly. No, the fact that it's Firefly makes absolutely zero difference at all to whether the game is any good or not. What it does make a difference to is your enjoyment of the game. So if you are a Firefly fan, you are going to enjoy playing a Firefly game more than somebody who isn't a Firefly fan, but it doesn't mean the game is any good at all. And putting IPs on games sometimes does cover over some cracks. There are games out there that just would not have been anywhere near as successful if they didn't have the IP on top. But anyway, right. Chris is on. Hello, Chris. I don't know what time it is. It's 7:20, so it's 20 minutes after I was planning to finish, but I'm here. I'm enjoying myself. Vicky's not home yet, although I am starving and I think I'm supposed to be sorting out dinner. Let's just go and see if there are any other questions that I haven't answered. And Chris, or anybody else who's on the chat, if you have any questions, feel free to pop on. We've done that. God, there's been loads of questions. Right, so yes, that's all of the questions from the guild. So is there any questions more in the chat window? Thank you for everybody who's turned up on the chat, and for those people that are still here. As I say, if you have any questions, now is the time to pop them on there. Otherwise, I'm going to disappear and go and get some food. Jonathan Williams wants to know some examples of such games with IPs that are no good. Right. Well, no good is very, very subjective. So I mentioned Firefly. The Firefly game, and not the new one that's just come out, I know lots of people who really like the Firefly game. But then I've got some other people who are able to be objective about it and say, well, it goes on too long and it's quite random and there are these things about it. those issues with that game are covered over because it's a Firefly game. So in other words, if that game wasn't Firefly, people would probably be more honest and critical about those things. But because it's a Firefly game, they're able to just accept that and move on. Another game which I really, really disliked, and it's another one which a lot of people love, is Legendary Encounters Alien. And lots of people love the Legendary Encounters system. And Alien, I love the Alien film. Anybody who wants to know the story about me watching the original Alien movie when I was 9 years old, on my own, in a dark room, in a stranger's house, and I'll tell you the story. But the Alien movie is fantastic, and I absolutely love it. So you'd think that an Alien game I would like. Well, yeah, I would, if it was a good game. But Legendary Encounters, for me, and this isn't the fact that it's just an Alien theme, because I think all of the Legendary Encounters have the same problem for me, is it seemed devoid of any player decisions. We just got the cards, and because the card mechanic is, well, you just do what you can with the cards you've got. Okay, I've got 5. What should I buy? Oh, well, I've got a card with this symbol on, and if I buy that one, it combos, so I'll buy that one. There you go. I haven't really made a decision. I'm just buying that card, right? Then those cards go away. And it's the usual, deck building style mechanic of, well, the play all. The play all means that it's very random what you get that turn. And we played it, and one of the characters got a face hugger on them. And it was like, right, so we've got until their next turn to get that face hugger off, which is very, very thematic. And I love that. However, it was boiled mechanically down to, do you have that card in your hand at this time to get rid of it? If you don't, they're dead. And the first time, oh, I've got this card in hand, right? So it was thematic, but as a game, I was just like, I have no control over this. The choice of which cards to buy is a fairly obvious decision. The monsters that we fight is a fairly obvious decision based on the cards that I draw. And then whether we're able to get rid of the facehuggers or not was down to whether we had the cards in hand at the right time. So I would never choose to play that game again. Anyway, right. Graham also wasn't impressed by Firefly. It took too long for how random it was. And that's, as I say, that's the criticism I've heard from people who were able to be subjective, is the game is 3, 4, 5 hours long, and it is quite random. If it was a 90-minute game, then it would be fine. Chris loves Legendary. Alien doesn't own any of the other ones. I think they all use a similar mechanic. I'm not sure. I remember playing the original one, which is the Marvel one, and again, I felt it was the same thing. You're fighting bad guys, but you just need to get a certain number, and whether you get a certain number is just whether you've got the cards in your hand. But it's interesting because if the theme, like you say, it's a fun game to play, and I have the same issue with the Pathfinder adventure card game. But at the end of the day, if you're meeting up with a group of people and you play it for an hour and you all love it, who cares? Who cares that I think it's a badly designed game and the mechanics don't work and there's no player choice? Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition is one of the most awful games I have ever played, even though I enjoyed my 3 games of it. It's very, very thematic, but it has 0 player decisions. Absolutely 0. Yeah, you can think, oh, well, you go and open that door and I'll open the chest of drawers. Right, okay. But ultimately, you're going to open that chest of drawers at some point, and you're going to go through that door at some point. And what you find on the other side is effectively random. And then the monster's random. And then when you go into combat, what happens is random. The entire game, it's 99.9% random. Was it an enjoyable experience to play? Yes, because a few of us sat down and we played through it, and it was a story and we enjoyed it. Would I play it again? No, because I've played through it and I'm like, I've had that story. There's no replayability in it for me because the entire game is 100% out of my control. So there's no point doing it. I'll play something else instead. Quarriors, interesting you mention it. Play Quarriors with a variant rule. The original game of Quarriors is completely and utterly broken. Whoever buys the dragon first wins, right? And I'm not saying Quarriors is the best game ever, but Quarriors with a house rule suddenly becomes a much better game. I've not played Quarriors for years, but basically it's if you choose to score fame from a creature, then you lose that creature. Whereas the original game is that you buy the early dragon, you start scoring fame from it, and you've got the most powerful creature in the game. It's just crazy. And you don't really have any decisions to make other than you just buy the biggest thing. Quarriors with this house rule, and if you need to know more, get in contact with me. I'm sure I'll remember it. It suddenly gives you an interesting decision. You've bought the dragon, brilliant. Now, if you want to, you can keep that dragon in your pool, and it will start generating cool things for you all the time, but you're not getting any points from it. As soon as you decide to get points from it, you then lose the dice. So you have a decision to make, and it turns it into a much better game. Right. Leanne wants to know why Graham's got a wrench next to his name. And yeah, I made Graham the boss because he was the first one here. And it's just in case we get anybody popping on the chat that starts swearing. Not that we'd have anything like that. Yeah, I'm trusting you not to kick everybody out. Is Quarriors Dice Master? Yeah, I think so. I think Quarriors came first, and then they did Dice Masters afterwards. And I've never played Dice Masters, but I think it's the same mechanic. But Dice Masters obviously used the IP and therefore went on to be massively successful. As a game, financially, lots of things wrong with the marketing of it, I believe, and upset a lot of people. Yeah, entombing mechanism. Yeah, exactly right. So it's the same with Valley of the Kings. You buy the cards, and the cards are in your deck, and they do cool things as long as you've got them, but you don't get the points from them until you entomb it, which is removing the card from your deck. Which I like that as a mechanic. So yeah, Graham saying Quarriors evolved into Dice Masters. Some similarities, but Dice Masters is closer to something like Magic with attacking and blocking. Oh, okay. And D&D Dice Masters is fun. So yeah, I've not played any of the Dice Masters games. I think they're collectible, aren't they? Where you get a random pack and I think people were trading them, and the problem was that they were giving promo cards out at events, and the promo cards were like uber powerful, like to the extreme, where if you didn't have a certain card, you just wouldn't be able to do well in any tournament or something like that. But Dice Masters, Chris, if you've still got any D&D Dice Masters, then next time I see you, let's have a game of it. I'd like to give it a go. And despite Quarriors being a version of Dominion, I did quite like it with the house rule that fixes it. So yeah, I'd give that a go. Blink625, what is my favorite game? Mage Knight has been for quite a long time. My top three are Mage Knight, Through the Ages, and Gloomhaven. Mage Knight for me, although I've not played it in 3 years, is still my favorite game because I think it's just fantastic. I think it's an absolute masterpiece. I think it embodies everything that I want in a game, and it contains so much replayability with different scenarios, customizable difficulty levels, just everything really. And it's a fantasy dungeon crawl game, so I like the theme. But fantasy dungeon crawl games tended to be very, very much a lot of dice rolling, and Mage Knight turns the combat into a deterministic puzzle-like game, which a lot of people don't like, and I really do. So yeah, Mage Knight. Is your expansion included in the upcoming Mage Knight big box? Thank you, Ori, for that question. Could you send me a link to information about the Mage Knight big box? I was not aware that information was public yet. So I'm aware of it. I assumed I was sworn to secrecy. That was one of those secrets that I've been keeping. But apparently Ori knows that there is a Mage Knight big box coming out. So I guess I can tell you that the Mage Knight big box does contain the base game, Lost Legion, Krang, and Shades of Tesla. I'm the designer or co-designer of Krang and Shades of Tesla. Vlodger didn't, to be fair, to be honest, Vlodger really didn't have much to do with Krang and Shades of Tesla. He had to approve what we'd done, and he had some input on it. There were a couple of things that we sent him that he went, I don't like that, and we changed it. But apart from that, he didn't have anything really to do with the latest 2 expansions for Mage Knight. So anyway, it was announced, but not any contents. Well, there you go. I've just announced the contents. But I think it's fair to say that, yeah, a Mage Knight big box would contain everything that's been published so far for the game. Maybe something new. Who knows? I'm not saying anything. Paul wants to know, what do I consider the most underrated or one that nobody ever talks about? Older games seem to get breezed as we all focus on new stuff. It is true that older games get breezed past. And these days, with the cult of the new being as it is, a game might have a 3 or 6 month lifespan. There are so many games out there that when they come out, they are all the buzz. And social media is full of people playing them everywhere and saying amazing things about it. And then even 2 months later, it's gone. And nobody's saying anything about it. And it's like, well, have people realized it's not a good game? Or have people just moved on? And I don't have time. I've got games for Messing. I've got 15, 20 games that I brought back from Messing that I've not played yet. Maybe 15. And I want to play them. But the time that I have to put aside to play those games are ones that I'm putting aside, are ones where I'm not playing a game I really like. So Mage Knight, why have I not played it in 3 years when it's my #1 game? And the games from Essen that have come out that Merlin I've played once and liked it, and I want to play it again. Nusfjord I've played 5 times and I would play that again. There's lots of games which I would play again. So yeah, it's difficult to say that there's many underrated games. What I'd have to do is I'd have to look again at my list of all the ones I played last year, work out which one I think is really highly rated, and then say, and then pick which one doesn't seem to be getting that much love. Because there probably is, but I don't want to pick one which is getting a lot of love. So Mini Rails, for example, is an absolutely fantastic game, but I think that is getting quite a lot of love from the people who've got it, but it's hard to get. Pegasus has announced the Mage Knight. Have they? Interesting. So there's going to be a German version of it as well. I really wish I would have done a deal with WizKids that I was on commission for that game. I didn't. So I'm not going to get any money from any sales of Mage Knight. That's a shame, but that's down to me. Right, Chris, really needs me to teach you Mage Knight. You've had it for 4 years. Yes, right. So just come down. It's only half an hour away by helicopter. I'll send you the private jet and you can come down. I love playing Mage Knight. I love teaching Mage Knight. There are 2 friends I've got down here who've been saying the same thing for the last year, that they want to play it. And I've said, I'd love to teach you. It's just finding the time to put aside and actually do it. But yeah, fantastic game. So anyway, it's 7:30. I've been talking for an hour and a half. My throat is hurting. I'm very, very hungry, and I need to go and cook dinner before Vicky gets home. Thank you very much for everybody who was in the chat. Thank you very much for all of the questions ahead of time. If there are any questions which were in the chat, which I didn't get around to answering, then sorry, I missed them. I'm not deliberately ignoring you. Post them on my Board Game Geek Guild, and I will answer them there. There is a quick question that has just come in, which is about Nusfjord. I've done a review of Nusfjord. The video will be out later this week. Keep an eye on the YouTube channel, and I will let you know what I think about the game in my review. And then if you want me to tell you any more about the game, just pop them in the YouTube comments of the Nusfjord review video, and I'll let you know there. So yes, thank you very much for everybody who was on the chat. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you all next time. And now I click stop broadcast button. Take care, everyone.